Start with the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And looks like everybody is ready for. Do we have any additions to the agenda? Guessing not. Any comments from the public?
He's ever put together a hunt.
Got Ralph back there.
Blue Mountain Outfitters.
No comment?
Ralph.
Nobody online. Okay, we'll move on to new business then. Marina 5 to 10 year plan discussion.
Okay. Commissioners, Chris is gonna queue up the PowerPoint here. As you recall, we did we had BST and Associates provide our study in April. Less than a month later, they sent us a scope of work to help us with a 5 to 10 year plan. I shared that with Commissioners Sorber and Buble as part of our early on members of the Strategic Planning Committee for the group. And what I thought would be more prudent is to talk about it corporately and decide essentially if we want to spend $48,000 additional dollars on, pardon the pun, sinking asset. Okay, Krista.
Underwater.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun.
All sorts of fun.
Little timeline there. April 9th, we had the study, and as you remember, they presented very eloquently. Gave us that scope of work, May 20. Go ahead, Krista. What we found, we're right about 550 in losses per year. That's not including dredging. If you add dredging to it, go ahead. That's spread out. You know, that's not the one-time cost, but spread out over time. That's what we could consider adding to try to budget for if we were going to dredge. Go ahead. As we know, the dredging portion is not sustainable unless and until we have a private partner with some very deep pockets, or we come into some really good money that we decide, well, what are we going to spend this money on? Which we probably have a lot of other things we may choose to spend on first, something that produces revenue, for example. So go ahead. And that's one of the things that that study had highlighted. We eliminate uses that require the dredging. So that, go ahead, Krista, that would potentially mean shallower draft vessels, potentially just human powered vessels. Go ahead. Looking at the future depths of the channel and how that's silting in over time, actually doing some measurements instead of some estimating, actually do some bathymetry if we decide we want to. And then again, focus on the non-motorized or the smaller vessels. So that's kind of where the options came out of the study. Go ahead. I think there's another one here with some, okay. So then they gave us the scope of work, which was a nice document and definitely provides a good framework on how to potentially move forward if we choose to use the approach. It's getting everybody, the last bullet here is the important one, establishing our planning committee. We got our 2 commissioners finds out which stakeholders in the community we want to help us move forward with, decide whether or not we want to move forward with BST or do we want to try to take this on ourselves. Go ahead. And their plan was very intentful, and it showed a lot of different steps to take, including all the public outreach, which I thought was kind of nice. Get that committee together, determine the viability with minimal or no dredging, potentially look at some different outcomes. Go ahead and there's 3 different public meetings along the way in their proposed process. I don't know that I would deviate much from that if we decided to take it on ourselves. I think the public engagement, I'm sure you guys are all agreement on, is very important to get folks' inputs. Go ahead, Krista. And then the step 4, which I liked of theirs, was after we figure out what capital that we wanted to focus on as far as maintaining or improving at the marina, replacing, maintaining or improving. Look at a development plan on what we want to do that's going to hopefully help us generate revenues. And just so we know, we're likely not going to get to zero loss, but at least we can reduce it as close to zero close to the net zero as we can. And then look at how we try to fund some things over a 10-year period. If we're taking money out of the port tax and putting aside, or relying on tenant revenues to do what we can if we can get another tenant after next venture leaves. And, raising rates potentially. I mean, it's really, if we raised our rates to market, we might generate another maybe $100,000 a year. So now you're down to 449, minus what we've spent on the plan. Go ahead, Krista. I'm kind of cruising through this, but I think we kind of know kind of where we're heading. I just need to get some direction from you. The economic impact analysis, that could be really interesting as we look at different ways to use the site. That may not just be focused on water resource, using the somebody in a next adventure role. Maybe it's expanded. Maybe they do more adventure type rentals or some case. There's folks out there that are interested. We know that.
That was my question. Have you heard from?
Interest, yes. And Wella's here. She's been talking to some folks, and I hadn't had a chance to answer an email she sent me today. But for us, I think until we have a plan from somebody, we kind of proceed status quo like we're planning to do, where we evaluate the uses. And, like I said, until we have somebody that says, hey, we want that space, we're going to do this and that. It probably behooves us to continue down this road of looking at it strategically over time. So once we figure out what we want to do, if we don't already have somebody that comes in, this may all be upset a little bit by the fact that somebody may want to come in and take over for next venture. That answers potentially that one specific aspect of the marina. But I think holistically, we look at it, the RV park, a phase 2, if that pencils out, and do some numbers on it to see how long it might take. I guess, again, reducing the hemorrhaging, trying to get closer to zero. And I think the next step is coming back to the public. What's more? Oh, go ahead. Thank you. So once the strategic marina committee figures out a plan that we can all agree on, seeing how the public reacts to that and get their inputs before we decide to finalize it. I think is there another one? No, it's a beautiful double rainbow.
That's what we need.
Animation.
That pot of gold.
That's the optimism.
That's what.
That's the optimism there. So, a lot to throw at you. And it's a 2.5 page scope that I shared with, I think, Brian, I might send you a copy as well, but maybe if you guys could share some of your initial thoughts on it, or.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's going to be a pretty tough spot there for us. So the biggest problem I really see is going to be the E-Dog tenants. That's going to be honestly the biggest. I know the dredge schedule we kept and why, but I honestly think you could probably go a long, long time down there if you just ran normal shallow draft power boats. We're talking 2-3 feet, probably. Who knows how long? I don't even know. I mean, but when you're talking this E-Dock situation with those floating homes, I mean, you're going to really limit yourself. So it just kind of puts you in a situation to where you're going to either be telling them, hey, here's your 10-year notice or whatever the notice is, and we're going to have to figure something else out differently and give them all the million reasons why. And they'll still be upset, obviously. But it's in kind of a tough deal there. I mean, the good things about that spot there is it is absolutely ideal for paddleboarding and water sports like that. So I absolutely think we'll get somebody back in there that's really gonna, and that space is always going to be very coveted right there. Everybody, it's just a good spot for that. I do think down the road, and I don't know when, I mean, I've already got multiple times on that no further action piece, a boat launch is possible there. That's something that's self-maintaining that, obviously moving forward, none of us were around probably when this launch was put in, right? So you probably wouldn't put a launch in somewhere that you have to continuously dredge. Well, the launch is still usable now, and it's always probably more than likely gonna be. It's just when you start talking about sailboats, anything over 4 or 5 feet, just kind of excludes you from it.
I think the frame that, they provided us earlier with the report is fantastic. And basically, all the answers and all the questions are there. So my sense is, I think we've got some talent to be able to do what they would do. I don't, if there were another port or marina that had been facing the same kind of thing, excuse me, at some point where there was issues with dredging. I mean, we have the particular issue with having to take the dredged spoil somewhere else because of the contamination that we had nothing to do with a long time ago. But anyway, bottom line is, I think we know where the pathways are. Everything Nick says, I totally agree with. And so I would say, yes, we need to pursue it. We need to put good effort into it, but I would say not go with him right now. As much as I like what they did, I mean, they were very, very competent, I think.
And just so we're clear, we spent 38,000 initially on that study, and for the scope, the 5 to 10 year planning, they're quoting basically
50,000, yeah.
Be 80.
But what do you think is the substitution then?
Substitution is for us to do some of the same forward thinking that they would do, because we have the base information already. What's wrong?
But we have so little staff
Well,
and so little staff time, I would think, to devote to this.
That was gonna be my question of Sean, is how do we feel about staff's time and ability?
Yeah, if Gina was still here, I'd probably say heck yeah. We're, in the process of replacing Gina. And I'm very hopeful that when we get somebody in that role, their skill set will be wide enough, but I don't know that that's the right fit for this. We may still maybe, look around and see what we might have in the local area that might be able to help us with some stuff. And I know that Wella has shown some interest in being helpful with their connections with Travel Oregon and tourism. We could possibly utilize her to some degree. Talk to Paul about that. But she has a couple of contacts too that she's talking with, so it might be nice to pursue that a little more. And I know that Amy, did you guys talk to Rex Adventure today, or was that okay?
And
Anything pertinent to add on them?
Honestly, should you check them out?
Yes, please. I guess timeline's the big thing. Is it still?
It's in September, is they're planning to be operational through September. Their lease is through 2027. I think that they're operating perhaps under an assumption that we would be into terminating their lease early, which is not something that I've communicated to them, but
why would they think that?
just vibes.
Hopeful.
Wishful thinking?
A casualness, I would say. I think he's voiced his appreciation of our partnership over the years. That's how he's conveyed it. He has one interested local party. He wasn't comfortable sharing who they are at this point. He said that they have not talked anything about financials and that they would need some business coaching. He said also that he's linked them up with Small Business Development Center. And that he's still trying to gather his P&L for that business entity alone. He also shared that there was potential interest in making a seasonal business by one of the existing employees.
So like I've shared with some, we talk enough with tire kickers to know that until we have a letter of intent or something that's got some
Business
a
plan.
business plan, it's kind of hard for us to react to thoughts and ideas. So we'll wait to see if something materializes and potentially work on some leads to see if they're, how could we make it maybe a nice thing, or they already, sad part is they already know that, the port's losing money, but I don't think that Next Adventure necessarily was losing money, if I understand things correctly, at that site anyway.
So I have a question around, trying to remember what it's called, the liability stuff that has changed recently. due to some court decisions, and there's apparently a fix in the legislature for it, whether it moves forward or not. I'm assuming if that does move forward and there's more protection for those who opt recreational immunity, I think that's the right term. If that, then there's likely going to be more interest in that site. But if it doesn't move forward, it might be a little more difficult to get somebody to take on that liability.
You did bring that up, yeah, so there was litigation, or case law.
Yeah, there's a case on Newport. They basically put in a temporary fix and the new legislation just makes that final. So
This was the Newport Trail thing.
yes,
Yes. It's been around for.
what is recreation? Walking your dog to the ocean, as it turns out, is not recreation.
Recreational immunity only applies with no fee, as I understand.
Correct.
So this was what he referred to actually was the lawsuit, I believe it was called Bagley versus Bachelor, which is, the unenforceability of waivers. So if someone were to sign a waiver, drown in their kayak, their family could potentially sue, and this, case law has proved that waivers are unenforceable.
And I think Oregon stands alone in that.
Yeah.
From what I have read. We
Yes.
are kind of the outlier.
Which is, like, if you've noticed that there has been a discontinuation of, classes offered at REI, that's why in Oregon. To your point, so yes, he brought that up as being a revenue source at that site that was taken away.
I was gonna point out back to the scope of work issue. The one thing that we were talking about was that could we do it in-house and save $50,000? And when I was looking at it, I was like, okay, what about this economic impact analysis? You know, this scientific stuff, this mathematics stuff that I don't do, you know, but and then you brought up with Greater Portland Inc., which we're a member of. They have all these financial whizzes who can help us out with that stuff, apparently.
So we can potentially do something in-house and then get help from some of the.
So just the worker be it here, get the
Like a
economic impact analysis, correct?
Well, that sounds really good. It sounds really good, but having people who understand the industry that you're talking about is really invaluable. And knowing a little bit about what it takes to operate marinas and the scope of what's going on in Oregon and with all the laws, I really hesitate to say that we want to consider ourselves as the reasonable solution to solving this problem. And yes, $50,000 is a sizable amount of money, but $50,000 or $30,000 is a lot of money to waste. So you know, if we were fat on staff, it'd be one thing. One of the reasons we're not is so that we have the ability to go outside of the port and get help that is an expert in the field that we're talking about. So I'm just throwing that out there. I don't think, I would find it hard to believe that we could do as good a job as they're going to do. They're very impressive. They know what they're doing. That's all they do.
Totally understand. You know, our very own Guy Glenn ran a marina for what, decade or something?
Something like
So
that, yeah.
he seems to know a lot about these things, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't have Guy Glenn that you can put on this project and dedicate. So you're going to pick from here and you're going to pick from there and you're going to pick from there and say it's good, but is it?
I'd be curious, have you formulated a plan as to how you might do this internally?
Not much more than the scope work they provided, which I liked, the scope they laid out for us. It's a good roadmap.
I'd be curious maybe as to like how you see that working with staff and who the project manager might be. That's kind of what I'm getting at is like,
Much of our stuff we matrix manage anyway. So, you know, bringing Bob in early on stuff and, you know, we work through a lot of stuff together as a team. I wouldn't see that changing really, getting bits and pieces from Miriam and Elizabeth and similar to what we went through when we helped them put together the study. There was a lot of staff work that went into that. So yeah, that's how we would most likely move forward with this. And I'm not sure, haven't really thought about it much more than it'd be a nice plan to follow. I'm not sure who I would say this is gonna be your baby or at this point, but if we were to keep it in-house, but we're just have somebody to manage it in-house anyway. Should we?
The thing about it for me is, I think the information they provide, it's not gonna change. It's all there, right? They said, hey, this is what we think. And then after that, I do agree that it may be a little cumbersome trying to delegate around staff here to do it, but I don't think this group that we hired, which did a fantastic job, is gonna, do anything magical here for us. They provided the information. They said, hey, this is what we think, right? I mean, then after that, some of the decisions gonna be made are gonna be made by us.
Are you kind of saying like the heavy lifting has been done?
100%, yeah.
We would
Yeah.
potentially.
And from what I understood, Sean, and I don't know if this is correct or not, I think a lot of that money was public outreach as well. Am I correct on that? I thought that was in their report. A good portion of that was them doing the public outreach stuff. So I'd be curious to what more they'll provide or where the 50,000 comes in. I know everything's expensive, obviously, and I think the initial report was 38,000, you said? What cost?
I'd be curious if there are certain things that are like beyond our capabilities, because they're so specific to the marina industry, if we would be able to take a portion of that scope and say, hey, we would like you to do this analysis for us. We're going to handle some of this other stuff internally. Maybe that kind of threads the needle a little bit if there's concerns about the amount of time staff has or expertise in a given area.
That'd be interesting if they specialize in something that obviously they do, but if it's something we think that's not attainable for us to do.
Yeah, I won't speak for them, but I can't help but think that they would be interested in, different pieces if we had, specific asks of them. Maybe that's just part of their good naturedness. That's a part that we enjoy.
I think we have the expertise to do like an outreach campaign, or we will, right? We're potentially hiring somebody after that. As well as taking a look at like, okay, if we get rid of EDOT, this is the impact that's gonna have. We can do those sorts of things. But maybe beyond that, I'm not sure specifically what's in the rest of the scope. Just throwing out some ideas, curious to others' thoughts.
Without consulting Miriam or whoever's gonna have the numbers, I mean, EDOC being gone will be a big, that's honestly be my biggest concern is the people that have had the floating homes down there for years and giving them adequate amount of time. So obviously dredging is something that's not working out for us for all the reasons we've went into. But that would be the biggest thing for me. I mean, and obviously the dock itself, I mean, docks are docks, they're 24/7 maintenance, we know that. And maybe it makes sense to not have some of those inner docks, the inland ones from the kayak, the floating home that Next Adventure had been using, maybe the ones inland of that probably don't get used a ton, that are in bad shape. I mean, sure, but I mean, I would feel dredging, I mean, you could go 30, 40 years in there and not dredge if you're running a 3-foot draft boat. And the kayaks only need this much water. So, it's kind of one of those deals. It's the floating home thing to me that's the biggest to do there. I don't know if anybody else feels differently about it or.
Do we feel like we have enough information to give Sean guidance on this, or would it be good to maybe come back with a proposal on how you think it'd be handled? I'm just curious where everybody's at, whether we're ready to make a decision or need a little more information.
Following up on what Nick is saying, I do think after going down there and looking at those floating homes, not only is it a problem because there's only 3 of them and all the maintenance and everything that it takes to keep them going, some of them have really, really poor logs to the point that I don't think they can even be moved. So the sooner we find out, or the sooner we decide when we're going to pull the plug and get that ball rolling, the better, because number one, there's no place on the Multnomah Channel to move those homes. And number 2, as I said, I'm not even sure if you can. So I think that needs to be
Interested in
done.
giving people as much time as possible to prepare.
Yes.
And to dovetail what Nancy said, we're not just gonna be talking the 3 floating homes. Because
Right.
those floating boathouses with those
Right.
wells they're all about the same draft. It's
Right.
gonna be all of them.
Right.
So I mean, how many's down there? Mary?
have boathouses, including the floating homes.
I mean, that's gonna be, you're gonna have 8 meetings over that. I mean, it'll be.
Are you talking about just removing the ones on E-Doc?
That's the only dock that has them, correct?
Right.
E-Doc's considered the very end, right? Yeah, and that's the only one with, floating type. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, okay.
Other docks currently that need meters that need repair.
Right.
Those are more moorage and covered moorage.
D dock needs, and B dock is, we're not even renting B dock out in that because it's not safe.
That was the one I was talking about inland of the, okay, right. So.
Yeah, and especially for people who are living there, and of which there are only 2 out of the 3 that actually live there. So, but those are the ones that are the biggest concern, because obviously they're losing their home. And that's very worrisome, but we need to find a way to make that happen for sure.
And the bad part about it is it's not like this is something, there's no amount of a rate adjustment you're ever gonna be able to put on that to fix that. You're talking, millions of dollars here, so.
That's kind of why I feel like study's already been done. I mean, I got enough information from the first time that I don't see how you're gonna come back. I hope you can, but I don't see how you're gonna come back with any information that says any other plan than Nick talked about is long-term notice to the deep fed that we're just not gonna, we will not be dredging. I think also that we would be able to use speedboats, fishing boats and ski boats.
Yeah.
Probably forever. I mean, that thing's gonna self flush a lot
Talking about tide, low water,
in August.
certain times a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm ready to start making those decisions and that'll bring people to a meeting. We'll have a busy meeting when we do that,
Oh, yeah.
but I know.
Tempered a couple repairs just in light of the recent studies, so things that we've held off on.
My big fear is to get that $50,000 study and it says just exactly what we're saying here now.
We could come back with a proposal in terms of how we would do this internally, kind of like what you were saying. I didn't really respond so much to Bob's question about Greater Portland because it was a suggestion I had thrown out. It was a former employee of mine who's still at Greater Portland. I know what he's capable of and we're members already, so I don't want to overcommit. So if we could have time to have conversations with Greater Portland Inc., there might be other organizations that could lend a hand in certain arenas, and then a degree of staff time, we can come back to you with that.
But I do think we need to make a decision on the docks and that we have to affect people on and get that done as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're just sitting and worrying about, and yeah.
What I'm hearing is we all feel it's pretty high priority to inform our tenants here that there's going to be some changes.
It'd be just them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's, I know I'm really throwing stuff at the wall here, but it's a shame that we can't move those floating houses right in front of our no further action piece out there. There's already piles of everything there. There really is. I mean, it's a deep draft, but I don't know what the,
Well, right now, there's a moratorium on building any new marinas, period, in this part of Oregon.
It's interesting though. I agreed. I'm wondering how that works with floating homes, what's considered a marina, because the lower river has a ton of stuff out where it's like.
Well, it actually came about because of floating homes, that
really?
moratorium. And it came about because of the problem with sewer.
Sure, yeah.
And so they just put a moratorium and said, until we can figure out what is the proper number of floating homes within a marina, we're just not going to allow any more marinas. So, and that was like 3 or 4 years ago, and it's still, nothing has been done. It's still in that same.
So a lot of the details that we're talking about are going to be things that we work through as part of this process.
Right.
It sounds like we're all in agreement. Maybe staff brings back a proposal on how we might do this internally with the help of some of our partners, and we make a decision to move forward at the next meeting based on that. Does that sound reasonable?
And I'm wondering if a stair step approach with the floating homes being the first that need to go and then the boathouses less important,
Yeah,
wouldn't have to all be done at one time.
yeah. Work with those most impacted first.
We do have a meeting coming up July 1, and so do we need to be saying something?
Advisory committee, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the sooner the better.
start the buzz with them, but also formally notice.
Yeah.
Because this is being recorded. Anybody who wants to listen is going to hear this. Yeah.
But we still have a bit of process to go through, but I think we're all seeing the writing on the wall here. So it might be a little premature, but giving them a heads up, I think is really good.
I think also it heads up to our state representatives that the reason we're not able to dredge is because the state's not funding it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're willing to dredge our property. It's the state access it. So just know that we're gonna refer our customers that are upset to you.
Have we talked to any of our legislators about this issue at all?
Well, the challenge is that there are some smaller ports that have commercial fishing fleets that need channels to their marinas.
More
That-
business related.
That is related.
Garibaldi.
And there's effort at the legislature to get some funding designated for dredging. We were not named in those because we don't have a federal navigation channel. It's those that have the commercial interests where everybody needs money for dredging, unfortunately. So those that are yelling the loudest, that have the biggest need are gonna get the most attention first, so.
Sure.
It interests me to spend more in almost like an RFP process for the canoeing and the adventure. So I just see that as exploding in Oregon. You know, you've got your travel Oregon, focus on that. You've got, I mean, the interest out there is amazing. Everybody comes out here and says this is one of the nicer, more interesting.
And the barrier to entry is low
Yeah.
compared to like everything else we do with Marina.
Like once we're officially, these folks, we have an end date to advertise in some of the recreational magazines and things that this opportunity is coming up. Give us your picture, give us your vision, because that's where that marina's going. I mean, it's a beautiful facility, but it's not going to be deep draft or sailboats or floating homes. It's going to be kayaks and shallow draft stuff. Yeah.
It is an absolutely perfect spot for kayaking right there. I mean, it
Can't
is
be beat.
Yep.
be hard to find a place better than that.
And one of our best tourism assets.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion on that or? All right.
Great.
I believe we have, let's see, executive director's report.
Yeah, thank you. Calendar here for you. Lots happening. I did something new here and I don't like the way it printed. Putting outreach stuff in green, so you guys can see that. And anybody wants to volunteer for any of those, we do have space available on all 4 of those events.
I can, the Rainier Days, the county fair, and potentially the 13 nights. Those will all work for me. I can't do this weekend. If anybody wants to run out to Clatskanie for the car show.
I could do probably do the county fair one as well if you're needing more than one there.
I'd be bouncing in and out because I'm gonna be doing double duty on that, so.
Great.
I can do the county fair. If you need extra help.
Okay.
And what was the
I
other?
might be able to as well.
We got the 13 nights on the 31st,
The Heritage
Rainier.
Express show.
Work every,
That's a Friday, I believe.
you're right by me, but
It'll be right next to the Clatskanie PUD booth, so. Can anybody do the car show?
That's what I was just looking at, the 28th.
you're right next to me, but I
That's
gotta
this-
work.
that's this day.
I can do the 11th.
Okay.
I will be coaching a baseball game there.
Lacey and I so far have Clatskanie covered. If there's anyone else that wants to show up, they can do that. Okay, other things here coming up, long awaited on this June 30th. We're going to meet the new Brad Jenkins, Debbie Powell, the VP of Utilities and Transmission for PGE is not new anymore, but we're finally going to get an audience with her. Commissioner Fawcett and Commissioner Kaiser are going to head up there with Ellie and myself and Bob and just kind of talk about the site and use agreements and maybe some co-marketing and some, future use potentials for the site so that we can avoid rock management with them and find out what makes sense for us to be trying to recruit when and if the rezone goes through, and just get their inputs on some of that. So that should be a good meeting there. I got the advisory committee coming up on July 1st, as Chip said. And let's see, we're gonna be closed on the 4th. That's a Friday, works out kind of nice this year.
I think both the Rainier and Clatskanie Chamber meetings are skipped in July, just
Okay.
on that, if I remember
I
correctly.
may have to start reading those. Good, okay. And let's see, we're just kind of hitting the high ones. If you guys have any questions, please ask. Columbia Economic Team Annual Meeting on July 15th. So I'm sure you're gonna want an RSVP on that as well.
I'll be there, or yours.
Okay. So Brian and Nancy, thank you. The 17th, as you can see, is a busy day there. We've got the booth at the fair.
No. Right.
As the OPPA president, I'll be doing the business meeting in the morning. It says 9 to noon. It rarely goes that long. And then at some point there, someone's gonna have to, Elliot and Bob will handle the next PGE call. And this is kind of some of the times where we miss Gina, the communications person, because she would have sat in on the PNWA call, which I know Commissioner Ward, you do sometimes as well. And then the South County Collaborative that day. So I might miss that one in favor of the fair, going to the booth. I'm gonna try to take off the 3rd week in July. We'll see. It's my anniversary week. If we have a second meeting, obviously that'll change, but 31 years this year.
Take it off.
Scottsboro Airport Advisory Committee on to July 28th. And there are 13 nights on 7/31 Thursday with acoustic flash mob.
Whoa.
Not only the Fort sponsoring, but
Double whammy.
Thursday, the 31st. And they've got the stage moved around and it's in the new orientation and I guess
I think the grand opening is tomorrow of the
ribbon
cutting at 4:30. Yeah.
Yes, that's a good one.
The park, the waterfront park in St. Helens.
13 minutes, yeah. Any questions on, I also wanted to point out that Lacey has recently created a airport newsletter that could be linked on our, you can find the link on our website. And I'll be sending that electronically when I send this out to you folks at the end of this week, so you'll have that. Any questions?
Busy.
Yeah, all sorts of good
All
stuff.
right.
Okay, we'll go to commissioner reports and start with Ann.
So I would say the biggest thing was meeting the people from American Jet. I went out there and had a very nice meeting with them. The one thing I came away with is I hope we're ready. I hope we're ready for these people. These people are the real deal. They are going to hit the ground flying, and hopefully we are going to be able to keep up with them. And I will say that that is the thing that does concern me. I mean, we are literally going from a sleepy little airport to somebody who's, playing with the big boys. And it's going to be interesting to see how well we can adapt, because we are going to be asked to deal with a lot of things we've never dealt with before. And I was just delighted to see that Lacey now has an office out there. I think that's huge. I think that's going to make a really big difference. I do not look forward to the Scappoose Airport Advisory meeting on the 28th, but I'm sure we'll survive. Which, by the way, have they been invited to join the advisory?
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Excellent.
And do you know if they'll be coming or how that will work? Yeah.
Yes, they are planning on coming. We've also received an application from Paul Vogel.
Oh, really? Why does that not surprise me? Okay. Perfect. So how many spots do we have open? Okay,
Hey, it's good when we got competition for spots. That's
absolutely.
got interest.
Absolutely.
You're not a good.
And people are always welcome to attend even if they're not.
Right. And have you heard from American about when they're going to be doing the job fair?
The 8th and 9th of July is the plan.
Okay. Right.
Wow.
We just have planning meeting with them.
8th and 9th of July.
Yeah, April.
Wow, there. Moving quick.
Yeah, they are moving very quick.
And that'll be at their facility or?
Yes, yes.
Working with all the partners that have been, the winners, at least.
And do we know what it is they're looking for? Have we been given a list of their job descriptions?
We have, I can send it out to you all. I can rattle off only from my week memory, maintenance workers. I think there was a degree of some kind of operations construction, people to actually pump fuel. And then like they're looking for a supervisory role.
Question, Nancy, if you know, did they mention like how many takeoffs a day or what?
What was it? It was like 12 a week to begin with. But ramping up very quickly. Because, and the interesting thing is, which they said in their original presentation, is this is paid for by Medicare and Medicaid. And that the team that they do work with that actually brings the organ to the airport is, I can't imagine how this is going to be so much bigger than it's been before in the way of expanding the services. And I don't really understand the ins and outs of that. But according to what Dennis was saying, 12 flights a week is just getting them started, but they plan to be doing multiple very quickly. The quicker, the better.
And my wife works at one of the major hospitals here in Portland, and it's a lot of some of the best heart transplant spots in the country are right here and different. I mean, so it's that is a perfect spot for that. There's no traffic, it's boom, boom, right there, and it makes a lot of sense.
So does this mean that they are now having more, they're expanding their services at OHSU?
So there's OHSU and St. Vincent's both.
Oh, both of them.
Have a major cardiac unit, and I don't know which one's expanding more, but I know they're kind of directly in competition with each other, and we have some of the better stuff in the country here. It's great. I mean, it's
wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
It's fabulous.
Eating for hearts.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, a long time ago, you just would have not had an opportunity.
No.
You just would have been out of luck. So
But is it just hearts?
I sure wouldn't think so. I mean, I'm sure.
So,
Yeah, I would probably.
Every kidneys, corneas, everything.
yeah, you name it. Yeah.
Yeah, my mother had a liver transplant at OHSU, and then the ratio of people who get one versus people who pass away without one is very small. So there's a monster market for.
Yes, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. And they were saying, the biggest problem is transportation. And so that's why they have no intention of being slow about this.
I was curious, and they made the comment about medical procedures on site. I was curious if that's maybe prep of this tissue or something, or, I don't see patients being wheeled out to Scappoose Airport.
No. And of course, this is all predicated by the people house, I think it's called. The people who they provide the organs. American Jet has nothing to do with that. And apparently the organ provider also has vans or that they can do procedures in. It's not like they're going to be doing them on the tarmac of the airport. Yeah. So I think we're going to be learning a lot. We're also going to be learning a lot about what a busy airport looks like. Because he was giving us a little bit of a tutorial about the problem of all these people that are just learning how to fly, and the difference between a jet and any other kind of plane, and the precautions that has to be taken that these people will not be used to because we haven't had it at the airport. So there's going to be, I'm sure, a lot of education that's going to need to go on, and a lot of.
I'll spice up the meetings too.
Yes. Yes, it's going to be very interesting.
What's happening? All right.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yep. Anything else?
Oh, and the PNWA meeting, I was going to go over a bunch of stuff there, but I won't. I'll just say probably the most important thing that came up was the Skagit Diking District suit. They lost that. And now they're going to be coming back and wanting to do an appeal. They feel like they have a really good case. In fact, they said that it was a decision that was fact specific and that they got the facts wrong. And so they feel it will not be difficult to overturn this original judgment. And of course, they're looking for more money, and I think we'll be hearing from them and asking them if we want to participate in the next round of this suit. And have you heard anything?
Not yet, no,
Okay.
I'm sure it's
I'm sure
coming.
you will. Yeah, but it'll be interesting because it does sound very reasonable. If you heard the whole presentation, which I'm sure we can get more definitive information to pass around. But yeah, it was very convincing and seems like it might be a worthwhile thing to pursue. But again, I don't know where we stand with the ability to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'll wait to see what they ask and
Yeah.
let you guys know.
Okay.
Yeah, just limited to reading the proposal. This couple of weeks.
Very exciting having a new tenant at the airport. It's been a long time coming. That is great work by everybody involved in that. That's super exciting. And more tough decisions ahead. It seems like the last couple of meetings have been really tough ones. So hopefully we can make some appropriate decisions. So.
Appreciate your patience with me traveling lately. My wings have been clipped now. I'll be in person. I know it doesn't work as well with Zoom. I'm glad we have it, but it doesn't quite. But I appreciate it. Appreciate your willingness to work on the sooner. Just about worked out the transfer agreements. We've got the roof scheduled to be repaired in August. Got some things happening there, so, and we're getting way more interest than I thought in training, so I think the whole focus is gonna be on training. Sheriff's office would like to do school shooting training, which makes sense, but other fire departments, basketball court there lends itself almost perfectly to these Connex containers that you prepackaged training modules for forcible entry and smoke drills and things, so I think you'll see those up there pretty soon. I think it's a really busy place, so
That's good.
appreciate that too. Thank you.
All right. I don't have a ton to add other than to thank all of you as well as Sarah and Sean and Bob in regards to the executive director review and how that process went. I think we did a really comprehensive job and it's going to bring a lot of value. So something we'll be talking about here today. With that, kindly read the executive session script.
Board of Columbia County will now meet in executive session pursuant to RS 192-6602E to deliberate with persons designated to negotiate real property transactions. 2I, to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of our executive director. Representatives of the news, media, and designated staff are allowed to attend. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any discussions or deliberations that occur during this or any executive session. The Port Commission will return to open session after the executive session. And I don't know, will you be announcing decisions about salary?
Yeah, we'll be discussing after, yeah.
So there will be some decisions that are made after executive session. Any persons excluded from executive session are welcome to return to open session when it resumes. Thank you.
To be clear, Counselor, right?
Right.
We're not gonna talk about salary in executive session.
Correct.
So if anybody wants to stay for that, other than salary, we're not gonna do any business after, right?
Correct. Well, I don't believe the other item has any business associated with it, right? Okay. Decisions, yeah. Okay, I forgot to thank Krista as well. Thank you for your help in all this. Okay, we are back in open session and just finished the executive director review, and now it's time to talk about a potential salary increase. To set the stage, I believe CPI for this last year was 2.8%. So that's just a piece of information to consider. Anybody has any thoughts? I have some ideas, but I'll leave it to y'all first.
Well, why don't you start, Mr. President?
Sure. I was thinking a total, say between 4% and 5%. That was where my head was at, given the, where Sean's at in comparison to his peers and also taking into account our financial situation and CPI. That was what felt like a fair range to me. So be curious as to others' thoughts on that.
That lands right with me.
CPI was 2.8.
Yep.
About 3.8, we did 1% catch up. Some about 201, 202 somewhere.
Wait,
5% would be. Yeah. It's a tough thing. I get to do this for a living. I really hate the CPI thing.
me
And
too.
because it's so, we could all pick up our phone and wherever you're living at, it's different and housing markets and the stuff, and it's a very hard thing to use. I will say, when you start talking CPI and 3%, it's, we all know how expensive it is out there right now.
Yep.
And, at 3% would be a tough one. It's just, I feel like that's low. I guess what I'm getting at. 3% would be low.
For the CPI.
Yes.
You feel like our area has maybe been hit.
I feel like every area. I mean,
And it's a lagging indicator too,
Am I
right?
getting confused? What's the difference if you go with 4 or 5? Would it matter?
No,
what-
I'm just stating the 4 and 5 would be more the range I would be looking at.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're not just gonna go with CPI.
Certainly not, but I just wanted to be on record
Gotcha.
there
Gotcha.
with that.
So a clarification, is this talking about a combination of cost of living,
Mhm.
merit, and equity based on that comp?
Yeah, I think,
So three different, okay.
yeah. Yeah, and the last one for me is just kind of that kind of guides us into the area. If that makes sense. To definitely kind of starting out with the base CPI, adding some on to that for merit, and then like double checking that we're in the ballpark of what other executive directors at ports are at, if we're competitive. I think we all agree that we want to compensate our employees fairly compared to other ports.
So was the 4.5% just merit, or was that the CPI plus merit?
CPI plus merit, yeah. I was somewhere in the 4 to 5 range total. That was kind of where, and I think Robert had said 3.8.
What did the employees get?
2.8 plus whatever their score was.
So it
It
wasn't.
could have gone up or down, mostly up, but
Yep.
it-
Was the average like 4?
I wish I could say, I have not seen the compiled info on that, but it's
I imagine that
probably not.
varies depending.
put together, it's probably less than 4 because the added driver wasn't that high. You had to be here a lot of years and
Mhm.
really do well to get.
The main question for me is nobody was below 2.8, right? Nobody went down. The CPI was this. So now we're, okay, I just wanted to, I know we're not looking to try to dig out multiple people's situation here.
Do we want to stick with a percentage to do this or okay, I wasn't sure if we just wanted to land on a nice even salary.
Doesn't really matter. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all a number, how we get.
All a number, yeah. How
Well,
about 4.8?
That's within my range, so I'm happy with it, but I will if any of you would like to make a motion,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Is that how we do it?
I believe so.
you have to make a motion.
Yeah.
I move to establish Sean's salary at an increase of 4.8%.
We have a motion.
I'll second for the point of getting the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
And-
further discussion.
It's just hard for me to get those bigger numbers. That's not a reflection of Sean's performance, period. It's just that it's business decision how much to pay and things are tough. And when you get over $200,000 in a public employee in Columbia County, it's thin air. Worth it. I mean, I expect our director to be well compensated. I don't want to go cheap on it. But those numbers get a little harder for me.
Just added piece of information. Yeah.
I was just gonna say.
Just below 205, I believe the
750.
average based on, was it 211 was the average in the industry, so we would still be slightly below the average. And I think that maybe is reflective of.
Like I've maintained, I'm the new guy on the block with the general managers and EDs, so I don't expect to be, you know, in the middle or the high. It makes sense for me to be on the lower side of that scale, so.
If you were to put in, I've just from a standpoint, it helped. If you were to put in the 0.8.
20410.
What is that?
Yeah.
You're talking, yeah, I agree.
We're talking about like $2,000 difference.
Yeah, I just did run that. I mean, yeah, so I mean, I would, so is there a motion on the table right now?
There's a motion in a second for 4.8.
Did you share the salary data with,
Yes, yeah, it was sent out in email.
and everybody's reviewed that?
Yes.
Any further discussion?
I don't have it, dude.
Do a roll call vote, just in case, so. All those in favor, or actually, I'm just gonna ask for the vote. Nancy?
Aye.
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 And I vote aye. So motion carries 4-1.
And I'm very comfortable with that. I have no issue. It's just,
No.
Sean, with that, I have no issue.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. I won't let you down.
We expect lots of blood, sweat and tears.
I'll be here.
And I believe we don't have any further business, so we can adjourn the meeting.
Hey.